everyone. Yeah, councillors online. Oh, one more person coming. Okay, so we'll open the meeting at 6 p.m. and acknowledge the fact that we are on Nullma land gathered here today for this meeting, and just advise everyone that this meeting will be live streamed and there will be a recording of the meeting made. Item 2 is about this meeting, so this is a public agenda briefing session, so it's for councillors to ask questions and get additional information relating to items that are for consideration on the ordinary council meeting agenda, and there are no decisions made here tonight. There's questions, questions, and decisions will be made next week's meeting. But because it is an official meeting, the standard orders will apply. The questions asked by councillors are to be answered by the CEO or a nominated person by the CEO, and as I mentioned before, it is live streamed. 3 is the record of attendance and apologies. We have all councillors here, apart from Councillor Simpson has an approved leave of absence, and Councillor Furlong was going to attend, but she's got a family matter she's dealing with at the moment, so she's an apology. And then we have Councillor Gillam online and Councillor Johansson online. And all staff are here. Yep. Welcome back to Simon Cott. Good to have you back on board, mate.
He gets all the hard questions today because he's just come back from leave.
And we have Acting Director of Community Experiences, Angela McDonald, in place for Emma Landers, who was the Director of Community Experience, who is absent. Right, 4 is public question time. Do we have any questions from the public? No. 5 is petitions, deputations and presentations, of which I understand we have 2 deputations. And the first one is Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine, would you like to stand up the lectern and just say your name and address, not like physical, just like where you're from?
like his suburb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Catherine Hurl and I'm from Point Sandy.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, proceed.
So, good evening, Mayor, councillors and members of the public. My name is Catherine Hurl and I'm the President and Founder of Wickham Equestrian Centre, whom I'm speaking on behalf of tonight. Firstly, I would like to thank the Council for the opportunity to speak and for the support the City of Karratha provides to the community organisations across our region. We recently submitted an application for a large grant seeking assistance with the removal of 6 dongers currently located on the Wickham Equestrian Centre site. This application was submitted following advice from the City of Karratha staff, specifically to assist in resolving this long-standing issue and progressing restoration of the site. While we appreciate that guidance, the application process itself has added a further administrative burden to our volunteer committee during already significant restoration efforts. Unfortunately, our application was unsuccessful, but we are respectfully asking Council to reconsider support for this specific matter. The dongers were not placed on the property by our organisation. They were left behind by previous tenants, and the site remained abandoned and in significant state of despair for several years before our club took over management and began the restoration of the property for community use. Since accepting responsibility of the site, Wickham Equestrian Centre has received no other support or assistance from the City in undertaking these restoration works. Despite this, our volunteers and members have dedicated countless unpaid hours to improving the property and addressing issues that existed long before our organisation became involved. Since taking over the property, our volunteers have removed multiple trailer loads of rubbish, demolishing a dangerous and deteriorating bathroom structure, removed a damaged water tank, installed and removed internal and external fencing, reduced the fire hazard across the property and worked towards cyclone compliance requirements. Through these efforts, we have transformed what was once an abandoned and neglected site into the beginnings of a useful community space for local riders and families. We have willingly invested our time, labour and limited resources in improving this facility because we believe in its long-term value to the Wickham community. However, the removal of the 6 large abandoned dongas, which were ageing, deteriorating and non-cyclone rated structures left behind by the previous occupants, is not a reasonable financial burden to be placed on a newly established volunteer-run not-for-profit organisation. We believe it is unreasonable to expect a small community group to carry the cost of rectifying historical compliance and remediation issues that existed prior to our tenancy. Our club has already demonstrated its commitment to restoring and maintaining the site for public benefit. We are not asking the council to fund our operations or subsidise our organisational activities. We are seeking assistance specifically for pre-existing remediation issues associated with restoration of city-owned land that was handed over in a neglected and deteriorating condition. The core issue remains the condition in which the land provided to our organisation and the substantial burden that volunteers have been left to manage in restoring the site into a safe and useful community asset. Without assistance, these structures will continue to deteriorate and remain in compliance and maintain concern on the property. With council support, however, the site can continue to develop into a safe, sustainable and valuable recreational asset for the Wickham community. We respectfully ask the council to reconsider funding or practical assistance for the removal of the dongas, whether through grant reconsideration, direct work assistance or other suitable avenues that council may identify. To allow sufficient time for the continued restoration and improvement of the site, our organisation will require an extension of the current lease term while we work towards resolving these remaining legacy infrastructure issues. Our members committed to the long-term future of the facility and to ensuring it continues to grow as a positive and valued community asset for Wickham. Thank you for your time, consideration and continued support for the community organisations across the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you for taking on such a large task as well. We here at the city always we have to deal with legacy issues too. This whole town, this whole city has got legacy issues. Yeah, that have never been sort of finalised. As we turn this place into a permanent place, that when they first started everything here was like 20 years at the time.
Yes.
Mine, I say 20 years, as they kept telling us, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years. But all right, does anyone have any questions for Catherine? Pertaining to the Wickham Equestrian Centre's requests. I have a question just on land use. As I know that here in Karratha, the land use there for the horse owners and all the facilities out there can't be used for community use. Is that right? I guess, say for example, there's a person who's got a business that they use the horse for, but can't be done there. It's got to be done somewhere else. Is there any land issues on, the fact that if we're looking to support you, but there's the support is really just for 12, people.
Yeah.
What's the wider community sort of benefit? Is that because of land use as well?
Through the chair, I'll need to take it on notice, but my understanding is that it's a community facilities lease that the city has paperwork lease in place for to the club. I'd have to confirm what the land use constraints are.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to think, if the justification is, it's what's the wider community sort of benefit? Because the large community grants has a criteria and guidelines, for community benefit. Whether it pertains to land use and that restricts some form of sort of wider community benefit.
So we'll take that one on notice if that's okay, Mr. Mayor, and we'll answer that in the briefing notes about land use. Yeah.
And do we have the team reached out to Wickham Equestrian Centre about other other ways we might be able to support them if we can't support them in a large community grant?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that one, so I'll respect this. But I believe the team have been working with the equestrian group around the large grant in particular.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But again, 'cause I'm thinking, there's some pretty good businesses up here that could probably, lend a hand as well. We're just removing dollars.
Yeah.
So I think there's some things we can sort of do to point people in the right direction. But anyway, thank you for your deputation, and obviously you'll take your deputation into consideration.
So,
Yes, Councillor Glover?
when did you take over the land?
So just over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay,
Yeah, I got
next
one
up-
there.
Oh, yes, Councillor Jansen?
Just out of interest, regarding what was just spoken about removing 6 dongers on the public agenda for the Wickham Equestrian Centre, it says upgrade existing structure works and new paddocks. Is there a reason why the project guide doesn't match what was just described?
I was asking for more of a partial funding, so we've asked for the removal of the 6 donors and other equipment for more fencing and stuff like that. Because as you said, we only are a small membership.
Yeah.
If we just get the funding for the removal, that's the biggest one.
Right, yeah.
Get that sorted first.
So you're kind of reducing the scope, saying if we could just do this bit, then we
Yes.
wouldn't need as much funding. Is that
Yes.
what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor.
Is that another question, Councillor Johansson?
Yeah, I got a follow up. Considering there's already a precedent for this, cleaning up someone else's rubbish out in a community location, when we've waived 50 grand worth of tip fees, can't we just take this on as the city and get this resolved?
I'm happy to take it on notice, Councillor Johansson. I think this particular item, the team were looking at it through the lens of the community grant and then the criteria for the community grant. But that's not to say that we can't, I suppose, wear a different hat and look at whether or not this is something we can provide other assistance. So I'm happy to take that one on notice and see if we can scope out what the need is and see if we can find a different way to help you get some solutions. Particularly if it's a city-owned land and you've inherited some problems there. Let's see if we can find a way to get something done.
Yeah.
But it hasn't kind of made it through a competitive grants process on this occasion. This is where we're at.
But still, this is why you come in and do deputations, right?
That's it.
So you give us, you say, well, hang on, if we can't get this is our real issue.
Yeah.
There might be another way to solve it.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
That's great.
Okay, next up is Annabelle.
Thank you. I've got a little presentation too, so I'm not
All right.
sure if you've got
Yeah.
something there.
We have.
That need to drive.
You should be able to drive it.
Same thing, Annabelle, just name and suburb.
Sure. Hi everyone, Annabelle Little from Pigs Creek,
Annabelle.
and tonight I'm here representing Pilbara Mesquite Management. So good evening all. I'm Annabelle Little. I'm the Program Manager for Pilbara Mesquite Management Committee, otherwise known as PMMSC. We are an environmental not-for-profit organisation that's been operating in the Pilbara for 25 years. Most of you probably haven't heard of us, as for the past 25 years, we've been a bit of a silent achiever, prioritising the successful control and eradication of declared weeds in the Pilbara. A declared weed is a plant that has been designated by state legislation under the Biosecurity and Agricultural Management Act, sorry, that's a mouthful, 2007, and requires mandatory control by landholders. These weeds are considered a significant pest as they threaten agriculture, the environment, or public safety. To put this in perspective, weeds cost the Australian agriculture sector over $5.3 billion annually in lost production. Yet the number one reason for the spread of weeds is PMMC operates across the Pilbara, providing on-ground control services across landscape scale projects for government, mining, pastoral and traditional owner groups. For example, we currently have a team on the De Grey catchment in the north of the Pilbara, working on the Ngurubur control on a 300-kilometre long catchment across 4 pastoral stations and multiple public camping areas and rest stops. Control will take around 3 months, and it's PMMC's role to develop, coordinate and source funding for the on-ground project. We have been controlling declared weeds for the city of Karratha as well on the Harding River since around 2019, and we've been working with the Parks and Gardens team on this project to support the city meet their compliance obligations under the Act. These are some of the projects that we have operating in the Pilbara, from the De Grey catchment in the north to the Yanri in the south, and just this week we will extend our services to the Carnarvon Shire to support their need for mesquite control in the Gascoyne. With this year comes our 25th year of incorporation, and we celebrate the control of millions of weeds across the Pilbara over that period of time. And with this in mind, we have undertaken some strategic discussions around what does the next 25 years look like. PMMC is looking to grow and provide long-term sustainable outcomes for our organisation and for the environment. And as such, we've expanded our scope of works to include general weed management and undertake a change of name to Pilbara Weed Management to better reflect that while we began with the control of mesquite, we have expanded to so much more. In addition to our on-ground services, PMMC holds a wealth of knowledge, having undertaken multiple scientific trials in conjunction with the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, and has been instrumental in providing education for the control of mesquite in WA and other states, making our resources publicly available to those who need guidance. As our state opens up with more accessible roads and infrastructure, sites become more available to camping, which leads to the potential for the spread of weeds. Additionally, those that are not familiar or interested in gardening may not be aware of the significance of having declared weeds growing in their gardens and inadvertently contribute to the spread. PMMC has expanded their operations this year to include marketing campaigns to create awareness around declared weeds, and this year celebrates with the catchphrase, "Pull out a weed, plant a native seed." To provide as big a reach as possible, we're hosting and participating in key events throughout the year to provide an education and awareness campaign that will capture local people, our existing clientele, and our extended environmentalist groups. These events include a new social media campaign, Pilbara Weed Management on Facebook, with monthly identification and tips. We've just attended the KDCCI Careers Day in Karratha, providing an education to students and opportunities that they can extend into horticulture. We've been invited to participate in the City of Karratha Ready, Set, Grow program with a weed workshop. That's still to be confirmed. We are replacing and installing biosecurity signs at the De Grey Rest Stop in Port Headland, and Caroline Gorge. We are hosting a weed symposium later in the year focusing on Calotropis, and we're hoping to have a stand at Finacle as an education stand in conjunction with DVCA, and provide merchandise for the Karratha Kimberley Cattlemen's Association conference in October. So we too have requested funds through the major grant program to undertake 3 of these key events, which include the Weed Symposium, the Finacle stand and the KBCA merchandising. With your approval of this agenda item, we will be successful in receiving $25,682.08 towards these events, with a total project value of $99,867. This includes securing just under $25,000 from other funding providers, and PMMC contributing $39,000 of labour and additional in-kind services. This currently leaves us $10,615 short of program funding, which we applied for with the City of Karratha grant, and that was to contribute towards graphic design and media services. To understand what you are funding, I will expand a little bit further on the detail of each event. For the Weed Symposium, which is focusing on Calotropis, on the 5th of August this year, we're planning Karratha's second ever Weed Symposium. Calotropis is a declared weed listed under the BAM Act and has a poisonous milky sap that can have significant impacts on the environment, landholders and the pastoral industry and other key sectors. In the Kimberley, the Northern Territory and Queensland, Calotropis is no longer to be able to be effectively contained. Substantial infestations now occur in the East Pilbara, but occurrences in the West Pilbara are still at a stage where control is possible. Industry representatives, Aboriginal groups, pastoralists, conservation groups and other stakeholders are all calling for a coordinated discussion on how this weed should be managed in the West Pilbara, and PMMC has stepped up to host this discussion. The purpose of the Karratha Forum is to bring together environmentalists to examine how it is affecting our regions, review existing control efforts and determine effective best practice approaches. The discussion aims to clarify what assets we're trying to protect and explore how we can collaboratively prevent further incursions. We've sourced the majority of funding for this project from other providers, but there is a component of the graphic design and media that has not been recommended for funding, which is integral to the promotion of this event. Our second is the FINACL stand, and to ensure we're reaching a wider audience and education and early identification of weeds, we're hosting an information stall at FINACL. 2026 is the International Year of the Rangelands and Pastoralists, and PMMC is proud to highlight the importance of the rangelands. If you're unfamiliar with the term, the rangelands are where we live in the Pilbara. It's a vast natural landscape which includes grasslands, shrublands and open woodlands that support grazing, biodiversity and regional livelihoods. In Western Australia, the rangelands cover approximately 85% of the state, with regions such as the Pilbara forming a significant part of this landscape. These environments are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of invasive and declared weeds, which can significantly reduce productivity and ecological health. Again, to convey this message, we're relying on sound messaging, and there is a component of the graphic design and media that has not been recommended for funding, which is integral to the success of this event. The third and final component of this grant that we have applied for funding is the KBCA conference. We are providing merchandise in the form of native seeds for the Karratha Kimberley Cattlemen's Association in October. This is a significant event for the region, bringing a significant return on investment to the community, with many pastoralists staying in Karratha for the week. Our major contribution to these events aligns with our 25-year focus: pull out a weed, plant a native seed. We're providing seed packets to all these events to encourage local native planting and the identification and removal of weeds. While we are incredibly appreciative of the current funding that has been allocated, in discussion with the communities team, they have made a recommendation not to fund this graphic designer or our media provider to the value of $10,615 ex-GST. PMMC is here today requesting the council to add back these contributions to our project for the following reasons. Number one, the resourcing of our graphic designer and media provider is the critical component to the success of these projects. With no designers, we have no flyers to give away, no banners to say who we are, no merchandise to provide, as we have no designs for the seed packaging. Number two, I can't take images like a professional, and I was recently advised to think of pictures and marketing not as an expense, but as a lasting asset for the business, and it definitely shows when you compare the difference. Amateur photo is me on the left, and then when you have a clear marketing photo on the right. So you can see the example of a professional crisp photo targeting the focus on Calotropis, which is exactly what we're trying to achieve. In contrast, here's me at the careers event. I don't have a banner. There's mixed banner messaging behind. We don't have current flyers, and it's no indication of exactly who we are. Number three, grant funding often talks about how do you sustain your business into the future so that we're not reliant on continual grant funding. The establishment of our merchandise, marketing and design as part of this grant funding enables us to be more self-reliant moving forward. Our graphic designer, point number four, our graphic designer and our media provider are both new local small businesses within the last 5 years, with young families and only around 1 to 3 FTE that are also establishing their footprint and meeting the cost of living in the Pilbara while competing against larger regional providers. PMMC is a supporter of providing locally where possible and would like the City Councillors to consider providing the additional funding, knowing they are also supporting these additional service providers. Number five, a note on the agenda attachments the PMMC scored, and this is assuming I read this correctly. We received the highest score and the highest percentage of all the projects. So if I'm putting that in the right context, I hope that means we're ticking all the right boxes to be deserving of the full funding in the council's eyes. To also put in context, PMMC has been a silent achiever around Karratha, advocating for and controlling in-kind callitrope around the city. And here you can see hundreds of locations where we have controlled the weed on top of those that we have reported to the city that fall under their sites for control. The volunteer hours, the use of chemical and equipment alone easily add up to the 10,615 we're requesting. So I hope that you will consider our request today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Annabelle, and thank you for giving sort of an education piece on
No one fell asleep, so I'm happy.
on all things PMC does. Yeah, it's still in Highland Place.
More school, Lottery's house.
More school, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Annabelle or just the clarifications on this information that we've got is the $10,000 request is not, so it doesn't fit in the guidelines of the large community grant?
If I can clarify for you, the feedback I got from the communities team was they were concerned that it sat more around marketing than specifically for these events.
Or the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my response to that though is that without that marketing, we can't provide everything we're trying to provide. So going back to the banners, the photos, the flyers for the events, all of that comes back to the graphic design that we need to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, okay, so it's all it's
interlinked.
It's interlinked in the whole project delivery.
Correct.
Pinnacle,
KPCA, and the Calentropers Forum. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any further questions for Annabelle's request? Otherwise, I will bring, Councillor Jansen.
Just one for Annabelle, was it? Regarding your application, it said your project cost was 99,000. You only requested 36,000. Why did you not ask for more? Like some of the others, when you look at it as an example, their project might have been 15 and they asked for the full 15. And a lot of them actually all asked for at least half, if not close to the full amount for their project, where yours only looks like you're asking for about a third.
Sure. So there, with all of those projects, there is a big volunteer component. So while I'm a single employee, I have a volunteer committee of 8 who are also participating within those volunteer hours. So if you consider across 2 days at Pinnacle, we've got 2 full days of people attending those. Likewise, the preparation and the process for the Calentropers Forum. So there's lots of volunteer hours that contribute to that, which we're happy to provide. We also have been resourceful in making sure that we're not asking the city for all the funding. We've worked with other partners and other grant funding providers to make sure that we're spreading that cost across the community. And they have been open in saying to us as well that they like the idea of multiple organisations contributing, not just one funding provider. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, so we'll bring this item forward the agenda anyway. Talk about. So thank you, Annabelle, for your reputation, and we'll take all those things into consideration. Okay, next on the agenda is item 6, which is the request for leave of absence. Does anyone have a request for leave of absence?
I do. Yes, so for the June meeting, I'll be in Canberra representing the city at the Australian Local Government Association conference. So I'll be flying over, so I won't be able to dial in either.
Make sure you put it on the agenda. You'll put it on the agenda for next week.
Thank you.
We'll deliberate on whether we approve.
Yeah.
Canberra.
I don't mind actually, because Canberra's going to be
Canberra
pretty cold,
winter.
so you can deny it.
Okay.
Councillor Gillan.
Yeah. Oh, Councillor Gillan.
One from me too, please. This one is for next week, which I did flag in writing already. It's because my hubby's been called in for surgery and I can't say that I'll have a confidential space to dial in from at the hospital. So, well, yeah, I can't dial in next week.
The agenda as well. Actually, while we're talking about that, one thing I do have to get yourself Councillor Gillon and Councillor Johansson to do is confirm for me that you can maintain confidentiality in the rooms of wherever you are.
I can, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Right, okay. Item 7 is declarations of interest. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest on any of the items on the agenda? No. If something comes to light, you've forgotten, next week, please present it. Item 8 is the confirmation of minutes. We'll deal with that next week. 9 is announcements by person presiding without discussion. All the meetings that I had through the month of April are there. If anyone has any questions, reach out to me. I'll let you know some information. 10, so what I said I was going to bring it forward, didn't I? So we'll go to 11.1, which is the community experience reports and the award of round 2 large community grants. The officer's recommendation is that council approve the following applicants to receive funding under the large community grant scheme in the table below, and that is the Dampier Sharks Football Club upgrades, the Nickel Bay Speedway 2026 Finagling event, the North Pilbara Football League huddle package, the International Day of People with Disability for 2026 to the Pilbara Disability Network, the Pilbara Mesquite Management Committee Incorporated, pull out a weed, plant a seed. Should we say plant a native seed?
Well, I threw that in my comments, but I didn't put it in the figures. So yeah, my committee are very supportive of that.
And then Reef Sisters for Reef Sisters Ocean Safety Skills and Community Initiative, and also the Royal Life Saving Society for the Karratha Swimming Water Safety Project, Multicultural and Disability Inclusion. And then 2 is to decline the following applicants to receive funding under the Large Community Grant Scheme, and that is the Dampier Squash Club for air conditioning upgrade, the Dampier Primary School for a school playground, the Karratha SCS for recess, the Karratha RSL for facility upgrades, One Tree Community Services for allied health support for Roebourne, the Pilbara Health Network for community health infrastructure at the Karratha GP Super Clinic for the facade. The facade upgrade. I actually thought they painted that on purpose to look like that. And then the Wickham Equestrian Centre for stage 1 upgrade, existing structure works and new paddocks. Councillors, do we have any questions in relation to the officer's recommendation? Councillor Swatner?
I do. Mine's regarding the internal process of the assessment of the grants and whether or not there's a panel that review the applications, and or if there is external members other than city staff on that panel. Sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, panel. If there's a panel, and if there's any external members on the panel.
I was ready for that question. Sorry about that. I got distracted for a moment. Yeah, we do have a panel, and it involves representatives from a couple of different teams across the city, but there is not an external representative on the panel.
Anything further to add to that, Councillor Swatner?
I don't think so, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Roots?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a huge thanks to you guys. Sharing time. All of the engaged community members and KGB service 25 years and 3 years of the last long sounds like a lot. And
Right.
not that it's like to be volunteer at community run up there. So thank you for sharing the time. We were briefed in workshop last week. I was just wondering, we had heard that administration had been in touch with everyone who had applied, whether their application had been recommended or not, except for one. So I was just wondering if we had heard back from that final.
The officers are nodding yes, we've heard back. I don't know. Did you have a further question about coming back?
To be more specific, I think It was just around my concern that there's services already out there in the community. But I did have a concern that if people are asking to create their own initiatives, that there might actually be gaps there. So I didn't really want to preface it with all of that. I just wanted to hear back with what the applicant sort of responded with.
Could I perhaps take that on notice and we can provide you with a confidential briefing note on that if it I'll just assess whether or not it meets the confidentiality requirements and we can put in the briefing notes or let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, and actually,
If there's any sensitivity around that, I don't know if there is.
thank you. And just to draw more questions out, I've actually been advised we've got a presentation.
There you go.
For 11.1.
Yes, oh, sorry, I'm gonna move to that turn. Sorry, Luke.
No, I wanted to ask in front of everybody. Is it okay for just stand here?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
That's fine, thanks.
Thank you very much. Luke, my name is Luke Finlay. I'm the Manager of Community Development and Youth Services. And I was just presenting to you today around our large community grants and the recommendations being made for round 2 of the large community grants. We sought submissions from the community from the period of the 1st of February through to the 27th of March. Throughout that period, we received 14 applications. Within the recommendations made by officers, we are recommending that 7 of the applications be funded either fully or partially, and recommending that 7 not funded. Of the 14 applications, the total funding request was $436,230, and the total funds recommended by the officers is $133,893. The assessment process, it is a competitive process. We do have a panel of 3 officers from different areas throughout the organisation, representing community facilities, partnerships and community development. They independently assess each application and then will come together as a consensus panel to make the final recommendation. All applications are assessed by the following criteria. So the strategic alignment with council's council plan, the income and other funding that may receive from other sources, the project viability and feasibility, the broad community benefit, and the capacity of the organisations to be able to deliver on the projects. So the total budget for this financial year was $600,000. We had committed from the 24-25 financial year is $175,938. We also have committed through a 3-year MOU for this year. It's $101,500. We committed in round 1 of this financial year $195,615, and we're recommending this round $133,893 with a balance in negative of $6,946.
Thank you, Luke. Okay, has that drawn out any more questions? Okay, you. Councillor Roots? Yes.
Yes.
You can do it, yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Can I just confirm, are we in negative or we have 6,000 left?
We've got over. We've got 6,900 over our budget. Yeah.
Coming out of Luke's wages.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So actually see a clarification for people on what happens when we go over the budget.
we do have another grant source that's undersubscribed, so we are able to balance the budget within our existing funds.
Further to that then, if there was remaining budget in another bucket within what you've just spoken about being underprescribed, is there an opportunity to potentially increase the funding in this round?
review.
Is in the question, Councillor Swapper, how much?
How much money?
Yes,
That would be a great question. How much money is in this one?
So through the chair, I'd have to get clarification of the exact amount. It is, we will be borrowing from the small community grants bucket, which is currently still open, and we do have applications coming in that are still being assessed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other further questions? Councillor Johansson?
What's the FTE hours requirement in running this program and all associated time involved?
We'll need to take that one on notice, councillor.
Okay, Councillor Johansson, are you asking city staff hours for the large community grants?
Yeah, well, someone sits around and assesses all the submissions that come in and spends time on it, and someone has to deal with all engagement with all the clubs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We can give you a bit of an idea of the labour hours that go towards managing community grants.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. I have a question. It's these legacy issues it goes to. The not recommended Dampier Squash Club for air conditioning is a particular one that has legacy issue where it is in a Rio Tinto owned asset. Yet, as part of our land transfer, that building will become the city's asset in the very near future. And they are sort of a not-for-profit sporting club that has a right to apply for a large community grants program. And the view has been that because it's a Rio Tinto building, that they don't fit in the box for funding. But my concern is that it's not explicitly said in the guidelines or in the policy. And the fact that it's going to become a city asset, the fact that a sporting club still needs the opportunity to apply for a grant, and the building they're in makes no difference to them who owns it. They just run their club from it. So I guess my question is, what can we do to help sporting clubs or community groups that are stuck in these sorts of situations where they're in a Rio Tinto building, but they're still a not-for-profit, they're still doing a community service and adding to the social fabric of our community. If we can't fund them through the grants program, and like I said, the reasoning, the decision on that needs to be more explicit. It shouldn't, if it's not in the guidelines, it's not in the policy, then we can't just have a decision, or we can't use that as our justification for not granting the funding.
So, I suppose through the chair, this is a difficult one because we are being asked to pay $50,000 to improve a Rio Tinto asset, but it's also being used for a community purpose. So traditionally, the groups would go to Rio Tinto and seek the funding from Rio Tinto, and as recently as last year, Rio Tinto was funding these facility upgrades as part of their asset management. So traditionally, we haven't included Rio Tinto in the community grants process. They've got much deeper pockets than the city does. My understanding is that because there is they're expecting to transfer that asset across to the city at some stage, that Rio Tinto is now advising community groups that they won't fund asset improvements, and they're effectively, so as you say, the community group is now in a no man's land, right? And I've got some sympathy for them wanting to air condition anywhere in the Pilbara, so it seems like a very reasonable request. So I think that was the dilemma that the team faced, and I think it has been our general practice that we don't make capital improvements to someone else's asset. And I think that principle is sound, but as you say, it wasn't explicitly included in the guidelines.
No, so the principle may be sound, but if we're going to use it as justification for decision making, then we may need to review the policy and the guidelines and make sure that it says in there that we don't spend money on capital upgrades to other people's property. That's my concern, is that, you know, justify the community decisions, then it needs to be in our policy guidelines.
And the difficulty that all of us have got is that we just don't know what the timing is of this asset transfer. We've been waiting for it for quite some time, and we are not involved in the decision. It's a discussion between the state government and Rio Tinto, and we are basically waiting for the assets to be handed over to us when they're good and ready. So in some ways we are being put into a difficult situation as well, because now we've got community groups coming to us because they are not getting any satisfaction at the Rio Tinto end of the conversation. So I think your question to me was what can we do about it? And I suppose there's a couple of different ways to look at it. The council could, I suppose, say to me that they're prepared to put some money into this asset, knowing that it is a matter of timing and that will actually end up being a City of Karratha asset, and kind of where the risk, and be practical about it. So that's one approach. The second is that I could be requested to go back to Rio Tinto and to put fairly sternly, shall I say, the fact that this is becoming an acute problem for our community, and is placing the city in a difficult position and is unfair to community groups. Probably we could do any combination of any of the above. And as you know, we have been advocating for the Dampier land transfer to be closed out. So that's consistent with what we've been trying to do and what we've been saying. But I suppose it really comes down to getting some guidance from council as to whether or not you wish to take the risk of making a change to someone else's asset in order to meet this community need. Is probably the guidance I'm looking for.
Yep. Okay. It's good. We'll think about it.
Brendan, you stand up.
I'll think about it over the next
Brendan
week.
had his hand up.
And Councillor Jansen?
Yeah, on that same topic then, haven't we already set a precedent that we've already spent money to improve someone else's asset, being the Baynton West playground?
Playground.
I think,
yeah.
Yeah, I think we would probably differentiate installing some playground equipment that was part of a disability access, rather than making a capital improvement to a building. But yeah, you're right, councillor. You know, there are different ways of looking at the problem. So I'm not disagreeing with the point that you're making.
Well, also going on from the squash courts, can you just explain to the community the reasoning why the Dampier playground can't be done, but the Baynton West one was done? Just for the publics.
I think that's a different conversation for today, but I think my understanding is that we received a request under a different grants process to do with disability access and inclusion for a specific equipment to support children with disabilities. And so I suppose the simple answer to that is it was a different purpose and a different funding stream, and that was approved at that time. And this particular request is in the context of this grant round, and this set of guidelines and in a competitive process against the other grants that you've got in front of you. So I suppose we're taking each piece at on its merits at the particular point in time that's presented to us.
Councillor Harris.
Brendan's finished.
Yeah.
The Dampier Sharks Football Club upgrade, that's a Rio Tinto building as well, and that's getting funding. So, and tonight on the agenda, we have another Rio Tinto asset that we're proposing to put money into too, with the cricket nets on the oval. So until the land transfer thing is sorted out, I believe Rio should be paying for all this. So why are we funding some and not others is my question.
Did you want to pick?
Yeah, so through the chair, the Dampier Sharks Club, we actually have not recommended the improvements to the facility. We are only recommending the purchase of tables and chairs and other equipment that the club would use directly.
With regards to the other activity, we're talking about the collapse of the drainage and the cricket nets. Rio Tinto is covering the cost of the drainage, and we're paying for the sporting equipment that's sitting on top of the asset. So it's actually, once again, a bit like the playground example, where we're providing equipment as opposed to a capital infrastructure. So it's a little bit different in its nature.
Would still like Rio to be paying for anything in there on their land that is not handed over to the city.
Yeah.
And that might encourage them to speed up the process. Thank you.
I suppose that's our dilemma, right?
Yeah,
that we're trying to do the right thing by the community.
That's what we might need to work on over the next week for the ACM to go, what direction do we give to try and solve, some of these issues that are only going to get, there'll be just more of them if we don't find a solution. And we need to, obviously push a bit harder to make sure Rio Tinto and the state government do what they said they were going to do, and they have a signed agreement saying they will transfer the land and assets from Dampier to the city of Karratha. And we've been waiting 4 years, 25, for them to do that. And this is the result of that timeline in action, is that we're getting community groups requesting things, and because Rio's decided they're not going to pay for it anymore, because Rio's going out to the Dampier Squash Club, for example, saying, well, we're not paying for it because it's going to be a city asset soon.
We're not paying for it because it's not an asset yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tricky ones. If there's no more questions, I will go back to
Thanks very much.
10. Yeah, thank you, Luke. Item 10. Is that right, Chief?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're back on track. So we'll keep running through the agenda. If your interest was in a certain manner and we've dealt with it, you're more than welcome to leave. Otherwise, you want to listen to us waffle on for another 40 minutes.
Selling it very well.
I'm not selling it very well.
Well, you get paid.
That's a slippery slope.
Okay. 10 is our corporate and commercial reports, with 10.1 being the statements for period ended 31st of March 2026, with the officer's recommendation on page 8, and as the council received the financial statements for the financial period ending 31st of March 2026, as shown in attachments 1 through to 4. Does anyone have any questions on our statements for March? No?
Yeah,
Oh.
sorry.
Oh. One more.
Just, yeah.
Thank you for thinking ahead. Okay, there's no questions on the statements. We'll go to 10.2, which is the list of payments for the month of March. And the officer's recommendation is the council received the list of payments totaling $14.2 million as detailed in attachments 1 and 2. Does anyone have any questions on our list of payments for March? No? Only to note, Yes.
Councillor
Yeah.
Johansson.
Councillor Johansson?
Yeah, I did have one question. It falls into two actually. What's the total spend we're spending on consultants and consultancy work for the month? Question one.
Right, I presume that'll be have to be taken on notice.
Yeah, I'll take that on notice.
And
Yes,
how much
question two.
spending? How much spending for the month are we spending on programs and activities that are related to state government responsibilities?
That's a more difficult one for me to answer because that's a bit of an opinion as to where roles and responsibilities lie. If you could give me some.
It's been quoted
specific
before that
examples.
local government's taking on lots of roles and responsibilities that are a requirement of state government. So how much is it costing us?
I'd need to give that some thought. Let me see if I can answer that in the briefing notes. I think we would say there are examples of where the state government has regulated that local government must take over a responsibility. So legislatively, we're required to do it, but it's been bestowed on us, I suppose. So there's a bit of a definitional discussion to be there, but let me give it some thought. I understand what you're trying to unpick, so let me see if I can come up with an answer for you.
Okay. Any other questions on our list of payments? No? All right. Move through 10.3, which is our investments for the period ending March 2026. Council received the investment report for the financial period ending 31st of March 2026. Don't have any questions on our investments, our term deposits, or any of our investments the city has? No?
Yeah.
Councillor Jansen, yes?
Thank you to the team for the workshop regarding the Bulgara housing development and explaining that the interest rate on that borrowings is updated every 90 days. Just wanted to clarify from the rate that was provided, because it seems like the last interest rate rise has already fallen within the 90-day period that it was last locked at, like updated. Is that correct?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, through the chair. The last rate increase would have factored in their prediction of the interest rate increase that recently occurred. So it did jump up to I think it's 4.7. Yes, 4.74. So that would have reflected the previous and the one that they thought was coming. They would have priced that in.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any of these investments? No? Right. 10.4 is the adoption of the fees and charges for 26-27. With the office recommendation, the council adopt the fees and charges as detailed in attachment 1. Does anyone have any questions on our fees and charges for the next financial year? We've had plenty of workshops information on this. Councillor Jansen?
Yeah, there was one on the surrender of an animal for the assessment to rehome or euthanize. That fee was jumping considerably. Is the council not concerned with raising that fee, that there'll be a lot of people, especially now that, people are struggling to just afford to live? You really think they're going to, pay $100 to surrender their animal rather than just discard it in the bush somewhere, or just kick it out?
Did you want to take that on again?
Through the chair, it's intended to be a disincentive to expecting that the city will deal with your animal when you decide that you no longer want to house it. Having said that, we do have the power to waive the fees. So I have delegation up to $2,000 to waive the fees. And on occasion, I will consider that on a hardship basis. So I have the power to waive that fee where it's considered appropriate by the officers.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes,
Another question?
Would the city, how do I put it? No, I can't word it. It's great.
Well, if you have any other questions, just email them through and we'll make sure we get them answered before next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Send me through your query and I'll help craft it into a question.
Oh, there was one other on those. It was the one that the ABC Pilbara reported on because they do such great reporting. Where is it? Can someone please advise the ABC Pilbara that the waste disposal permit was the one that was going up 246% to $85.84, not a water disposal permit, because I don't think anyone would be too upset if someone watered their garden for them for free.
I don't think I've seen the ABC.
No.
I still want to share that.
Thanks, councillor. I'll take the question of whether or not we've advised the ABC on notice.
Thanks.
Okay, councillor.
I had one question, and it's been raised through the community with regards to photocopying and printing, where it's a service that's no longer provided, and it's quite difficult in town to be able to go anywhere to do that, especially if you are a non-for-profit. Is that a service that we could look to reinstate? Do you want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, we are still offering photocopying and printing services at the library. This is just taking it out of the customer service.
Okay.
Because we, at this point, we don't get requests through our customer service area.
Yeah.
But we definitely get them through the library and it will continue through the library.
Is that charged, the cost?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more. Yeah,
Yes.
the trolley impound and release fee. How high do we think we can push that before we upset the supermarkets?
I really don't know the answer to that question.
Or how high do we have to go to have a clean town? The other side of the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a trial and error. But yeah, our thought was that we're significantly increasing it to create a bit of a disincentive once again. And we were roughly thinking that we're charging about 1/4 of the cost of replacing a trolley, and that would be a reasonable sort of benchmark for a supermarket to want to invest a bit of time and effort in collecting their trolleys, because effectively it's litter. So we've gone for sort of a 25% of our rough idea of how much it costs them to replace it. So that was our logic. But I think also we probably need to, alongside that, have a bit of a campaign and a little bit of education with the supermarkets, and probably have a bit of a pickup service from the city where we're going around collecting up these trolleys and then inviting the supermarket to come and pick it up, and here's the bill. So, you know, I think there's probably going to have to be a bit of a program there.
Yeah, so little follow up on that. Does that figure cover enough for a ranger to basically have a trailer and collect the trolleys? And in past, does the supermarket actually pay to collect their trolleys, or do they just leave them abandoned?
Through the chair, I don't know off the top of my head whether the fee would cover. I think it would depend on how many you're collecting, but the reality is that we have to impound them under the Act, and there is administration associated with that. So typically the ranger's preferred response is to speak directly to the supermarkets when they see the trolleys and they report them direct. We're also doing social media campaigns with the community to remind them that there are apps available for both Woolies and Coles where they can report a trolley. And both supermarkets presently have their own trailers and are regularly collecting the trolleys because they obviously have a value to the business. And I must admit, I've also had a recent discussion with the shopping centre around the potential to implement some physical barriers, for instance, that might prevent the trolleys from leaving the site. But due to the way that the shopping centre is designed, the cost to implement that kind of physical barrier would be astronomical, and it's not something that they're able to consider.
Thank you. Any other questions? Pertaining to fees and charges? Right. All right. 10.5 is the review of council policies. The officer's recommendation to endorse the following draft revised policies to be advertised for public comment. And that is do we have is there a presentation? No. The disability access and inclusion policy. And B, the grants and sponsorship policy. And 2, adopt the new privacy policy. Does anyone have any questions? Any of these policy updates or new policy? Well, if you do have questions, same as before, just email them through. So we can get the answers before the official council meeting. 10.6 is the adoption of a workforce plan for 2025-26 all the way through to 2029-30. And do we have a presentation on this one?
We do.
We do. Sandra, welcome.
Thank you, everybody. And I believe we're going to start today with Virginia talking to a couple of contextualised points around the environment that we're operating in today. Can you read those, Virginia?
No, I can't, but that's all right. So look, workforce plan is a really critical part of our integrated planning strategy. It's been a piece of work that we've been working on now for quite a while. And I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the context and then hand over to Sandra, who's the manager responsible. But we're currently, like every employer in the Pilbara, there is a lot of pressure points in terms of managing a workforce in this environment. At the moment, the unemployment rates, it says there for WA is 4.2% for the year. But I think you'd probably find in Karratha it's sub 1%. CPI at the moment in WA is tracking at 4.6%. And the wage price index for the year to December in WA is 4.1%. So we're about to head into negotiating an industrial relations agreement, and we're expecting that we're going to see numbers in this vicinity in terms of the negotiation process. If we can just go to the next slide. In amongst all of that, we've got a very tight labour market. I've mentioned inflation and cost of living. And we all know that everyone is experiencing cost of living pressures. So our employees are experiencing that as well as our ratepayers and residents. So we have pressure points at the service delivery level, the ratepayer level, and then also for our employees. And of course, we know that in our environment, we're competing for a skilled workforce, which is also placing upward pressure on salary and expectations. We know that there's a fuel crisis at the moment, so it's probably the absolute worst time for us to be negotiating an industrial agreement, is what our advisor has told us. But it's the reality of the pain points that our employees are experiencing as well. This diagram is a new one, and it's actually talking about regional city maturity. And the reason that we're showing this is to sort of say we benchmark our environment to other regional cities, but we also know that Karratha and Port Hedland have particular pressure points that are quite different to our colleagues in Albany and Kalgoorlie and Geraldton. And that is being driven by the environment that we're in. We know that we've got about a 20 to 30% increase in population. We know that we're accommodating a lot of industrial diversification and expansion, and the workforce intensity and the strategic drivers and probably the work complexity that our city is managing at the moment compared to other local governments in metro areas and even other regional cities is quite acute. And so we're managing more complexity, more pressure points, and the depth and breadth of what we're managing in an operating context is actually quite extraordinary. We can be in one moment talking to the Premier about how we drive a 7 regional cities model, and then at the next moment talking to a ratepayer in Roebourne about their lived experience of living in one of our 5 towns. So most capital cities and most local governments are not dealing with that depth and breadth of work. So the reason I mentioned that is that it does place, it's an incredibly exciting city to work in, but it is also means that we need to be attracting people with quite a wide variety of skill sets and people, as I mentioned, who can handle scale and complexity. So we would sum up some of the workforce challenges that this plan is aiming to assist with. Obviously, cost of living, attraction and retention of talent, access to housing, evolving our digital transformation and digital skills, and then managing the pace of change. And council have heard me talk about this before, but internally we a lot of our processes and systems haven't kept pace. We're probably about 10 to 15 years behind where our processes and systems should be because there hasn't been a regular and ongoing investment. So we're now on a growth curve of trying to catch up, reskill our workforce while we're adapting to a rapidly changing external environment. And also we have a lot of growing expectations from our community that we do want to meet. And probably the key thing that influences what I see is that our community expect a lot of us and we want to do the right thing by our community, and our council want us to deliver an ambitious program of work and to actually get things done. So what we're doing from a workforce planning perspective is that we are building additional capacity into our labour model. And I call it sort of it's like a modular model where we are building building blocks of labour that can scale up and scale down according to the project environments that we've got in front of us. So so we are at the moment scaling up. It's reflecting the degree of projects that we've got in front of us, both in terms of internal projects to get our own business right and external projects to deliver community amenity. And so we're definitely scaling up at the moment, and I'm getting feedback from the community that there's concern about that. I can also just want to mention there's some different numbers flying around because there is discussion around staff advertisements that are going on, and there's misinformation out there. So I did want to let everyone know we have 368 FTEs, which is the full-time equivalent. You add up all the part-timers, that's what it adds up to. I do have a workforce plan that's based around 430, staff. So I'm running at 85% capacity, which means that at any point in time, we're effectively 15% below what we believe we need to be delivering services. So there's some numbers that have been thrown around 600 to 650. That's incorrect. These numbers are benchmarked against similar sized cities to City of Karratha. We do a lot of analytics around the size of our workforce. So I suppose there's a couple of key things here as I hand over to Sandra, which is we're working in a very challenging environment. We have a request from council for us to deliver a lot. We're scaling up to do that delivery, but we also are scaling up in a responsible way so we can actually be agile and flex and scale back down according to our project outlook. Also, yes, there are increased expenses, but there's also increased revenue from grant sources and various other locations to offset that. And we are absorbing a lot of these costs within our structures. And as you would have seen, we are looking at ways to minimise how that flows through to ratepayers as well. So last year, our residential rates went up 0. This year, the proposal is 4. So over the last 2 years, we're effectively covering rate increases of an average of 2% over the 2 years. While we're scaling up, we're actually absorbing all of those additional costs to get things done. So that's a little bit of the context, because it is quite a challenging environment to hire and retain employees right now. You've probably got the top 5 things there that we are really focused on delivering. So Sandra, with that preamble, I'm going to a long preamble, but I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say hello to folks that I haven't met before. I'm Sandra McKechnie. I'm the Manager of People and Culture. So this has been a piece of work that we've been working on for some time, and it's really actually quite exciting for me to be able to share it with you today, even in this challenging environment and the particular touch points that we're seeing externally and how those are impacting us today. But where I want to start with is that at its core, this plan is all about having the right people with the right skills in the right roles, not just for now, but setting us up for the future. We've got a 10-year-long council plan that's about making sure we set ourselves up for success to deliver on those goals. Sits inside the integrated planning and reporting framework. It's not a standalone document, and it directly supports the delivery of the council plan and ensures that workforce is aligned to community priorities. And it's not just looking at the circumstances of today. It identifies the work we're currently doing, the new work that's coming, and what it means for our workforce over that short and long term. How do we go about it? Well, we were very committed to making sure that we took a very best practices approach to providing a quality answer to the question of a workforce plan. We adopted a structured and evidence-based approach to create the plan, following the 5-step process that you can see here. What's important here is that this scaffolded approach, aligned with best practice workforce planning, is not just within government, local government, but more broadly. We've referenced CIPT, we've referenced the AIHR, and in lieu of an actual WA guide, we referred to the New South Wales Integrated Planning and Reporting Handbook for local councils and adopted their best practice approach for creating this guide. When we look at our data, we can see some really interesting stories being told about who we are. We already know that we're operating in a highly competitive labour market. We know that we've got increasing demand for specialised and digital skills. And we know, as Virginia has shared earlier, that we've got rising expectations, not just from employees, but from our community. At the same time, when we look at our internal analysis, we can see that we have really quite a young workforce. We skew quite young. And we also have a short tenure. So the average employee stays with us for 2.9 years. My great question to solve, how do I turn 2.9 years into 4? And if we can solve that problem, we improve a whole lot of not just service deliveries, but the demand on internal service and internal support structures for the organisation. So fundamentally, this plan is now answering that question. How do I turn 2.9 years or 3 into 4? The key takeaway is that the challenges we're seeing locally are not unique, but the way that we respond to them needs to be deliberate, it needs to be strategic and aligned to best practice. And that's what the plan's designed to do. Combine that robust external research with our own insights to create clear evidence-based path forward. Which brings us to what does the plan look like? When we took all the information we had available to us and synthesized that together and looked at, well, what are we creating? It's built around these 4 pillars. The data, the research, our strategic direction, it all led us here. And we start with empowering a thriving culture, where we focus on strengthening engagement, well-being, inclusion, and leadership, recognising that culture is a major driver of retention. We have a pillar of empowering service excellence, where we look to improve systems, structures, workforce planning, maturity, so people can actually do their jobs effectively and do them efficiently. We look at empowering our talent story. So we ask the question, how do we attract, how do we retain people? By developing a strong employee value proposition and providing clear career pathways and progressions. And we looked at empowering innovation and agility, building that workforce that can adapt, whether that's through digital capability, change management, or new ways of working. And together, these pillars respond directly to what we're seeing, not just in our workforce, but what we also know we'll need for the future. So what comes next? For us, implementation isn't an overnight action. It is definitely staged over the next 5 years. And it starts tonight with endorsement from council through to communications, both internally and externally, and engaging in an annual review cycle, keeping ourselves in line with the budget cycles and with the shifting changing priorities of the organisation. So in summary, this plan gives us a clear, practical roadmap to build a workforce that's not just fit for today, but actually ready for the future. It's grounded in data, it's aligned to strategy, and it's focused on what matters most: our people, our capability, and our ability to deliver our council plan for the community we serve. Thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Andrea. And I appreciate the amount of work and effort that was required to do this workforce plan, and wish everyone involved the best success, because I know I've been here a while and sometimes these negotiations are quite difficult. So all the best with that. Does anyone have any questions on our workforce plan? Councillor Roots.
Quite a few. It's so remarkable when I sort of share that excitement about the analytics and the composition of our workforce, because this is essentially the backbone. Like, we make decisions, yes, but how do they actually get implemented? And to see, get such a broad scope of the idea of who's carrying the weight for us is amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's really great. Thank you very much. I only had one small little question. And since I have actually noticed that it's very clear in stating that it is our leadership team as at the start of this year. Yeah. So that was just something that I thought, that would be really great. We have had significant change, and it will shift the way that our organisation works. So it was just a question around updating the leadership. If we could, were to be endorsed, could we update the leadership?
Yeah, we can have it.
I know
exactly.
Times and that sort of
It was a very big question for us, because we were looking, what is the effective date we use here to represent? So we're happy to take that away if that's the direction, and reflect what the current state is today.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on our workforce plan? I hope what it does is clarify to everyone, the facts, as you've all received emails and about 640 employees and rising wage costs and data.
We have a couple of casuals. We have a couple of casuals, right? But they're out there delivering some really great services, highly seasonal.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, or there's, well, me, Sandy, you've done a fantastic job, right?
She has.
Of explaining everything, and Virginia doing the contextualise of it. No, it's fantastic. Okay, if there's no questions on that,
Thanks, Sandra.
thank you, Sandra. We'll go to 11. We've done the 11.1, so 11.2 is the proposed adoption of revised council policy CS24, community and stakeholder engagement, of which we have a presentation.
Another presentation.
That's right.
I'm Megan Woodhill. I'm standing in for Vanessa Superman this evening, who's unfortunately absent due to illness, and my role is the engagement specialist. So I just wanted to very briefly take you through the presentation. As you're most likely aware, we went for endorsement in February for our draft engagement policy, CS24, and also our draft engagement guidelines, which accompany the policy. We had it open for public comment just shy of a month. And we made sure, being the engagement team, that we were across making sure that we had representation. Well, not representation per se, not statistically, but enough coverage that we gave opportunity for our wider community to be aware, and they were able to provide feedback via our What We Make It project page on our online platform. We made sure that we covered our place-based, so we had feedback stations set up at our libraries in Wickham, Dampier and Karratha, and we actually got a lot of feedback through that channel, which were paper-based surveys, and we're confident that we captured a lot of seniors and people that otherwise probably wouldn't have responded. We also covered our Yarramuggadu community in Roebourne, and we popped up at wasn't the cafe actually, we popped up at the community hub just adjacent to the shopping centre, the social shopping area, and we were able to at least raise awareness about this. We got a little bit of feedback that way as well. And then we had a face-to-face workshop because we had 38 depth interviews a little while ago, about 12 months ago, and we invited all of those stakeholders who were spread across community of place, community of identity, community of life stage. We made sure that we invited them back to have a look at what they had informed us about, and that's what guided the drafting of the documents. The feedback that we received largely was supportive of what went out to community in draft form. There were some concerns raised, which tended to anecdotal feedback on some experiences that we know happened, particularly prior to 2024. We really started to up the ante in our community and stakeholder engagement space. And we're confident that we're already quite across some of those concerns, and those concerns were addressed in the guidelines as things that we would like to improve, and they've been acknowledged. And our framework is designed to address those concerns. There were a few suggestions for amendments which we have recommended be added to our policy. So we're adding to the draft policy rather than taking anything away. The first was a pickup of a business owner who saw that businesses were not listed in the examples of stakeholders in the policy as was in the guidelines. So we just basically have aligned with the guidelines to make sure that we've got all the same example stakeholders. And we say could because it's bespoke depending on the project. It's not an exhaustive list. So we've added to that. We've also added to the periods impacting community engagement when we may pause engagement to take into consideration things like seasonal sports. Those that are in those communities are really busy during particular times of the year. So if we were to go out and try and engage with them at that point, we probably wouldn't be very successful because they're busy setting everything up for the season. So we've just broadened that out to capture other parts of our community. We've also made sure that inclusivity and equity applies to the way we communicate. communication is a form of engagement, but it's seen as a separate function for a lot of people. So we just wanted to make sure that that was clearly articulated in the policy. And also the inclusion of what is a bit of a precedence for us. We will provide some incentives to encourage participation, overcome some barriers. And so we wanted to ensure that based on the feedback that was acknowledged and included in policy. And it's usually things like vouchers for buy local, spot prizes, and it's basically to encourage. And obviously in our annual community survey, we really try and encourage participation because we need that statistical validity. So we've made those amendments to the policy. That's it.
Okay. Councillors, any questions on the policy? No. Councillor Roos is thinking of it.
But with regards to us gathering the feedback and circling back around to the community, I sort of noticed, and I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not reading it incorrectly. I'm just concerned that there's not actually the ability for us to see responses.
It should be in the attachment, which is the verbatim responses.
Yeah, but it just sort of says only completed statement. So only completed statement, agree, disagree, questions. And so there's not that sort of overview. And look, I appreciate it would be hard to capture everybody and share all of their examples, but that was really the only thing.
So I think, Councillor, in the pack at page 229, there's a series of feedback, like verbatim feedback. I think we try not to edit it, because as soon as we start to edit it, we lose the gist and lose the confidence of people.
There will also be a report that goes up on what we make as a closing the loop activity prior to the OCM, which will detail some of those statements that you're talking about, those agree, disagree statements. Because of the numbers that we received, it's not statistically valid, obviously, but it is indicative of the sorts of agreement levels that we got around some of the statements.
And so that's within this next week.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gillen, did you just have your hand up? No? No more questions on the revised policy?
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for coming in, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
11.3 is the establishment of a disability access and inclusion advisory group, of which we have a presentation. Luke, welcome back.
Thank you. Yes, so Luke Finlay, Manager of Community Development and Youth Services, and I would like to present to you today the request to establish a Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Group. The Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Group will support the Council through our strategic plans, policies, providing feedback, advice on projects and such sort of activities for the city. It has been identified within our Disability Access and Inclusion Plan within Outcome 6.1.2 for us to establish a Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Group. So with this agenda item, we will be requesting that Council approve the establishment of an advisory group through an EI expression of interest process. Note the draft terms of reference, which will be presented at the first meeting of the advisory group for adoption, appoint 2 councillors, and then request that all minutes be tabled at the following OCM through an information report. The advisory group membership, we are looking to see made up of 10 community members with representation from people with lived experience of disability, carers of people living with disability, and professionals from the disability support sector. We also would like to see the 2 elected council members have the Director of Community Experience or their proxy as the chairperson of the advisory group, and a city officer to provide the administrative support to the group. The selection criteria through the expression of interest process will be through personal experience, so really prioritising that lived experience membership on the advisory group, knowledge and commitment, so demonstrate commitment to access and inclusion and support by appropriate knowledge and experience in matters related to disability, participation, representation, leadership, safety and wellbeing. Also ensuring just that we've got a broad representation from across the city of Karratha if we're able to, and then also the capacity to commit and actively contribute to the advisory group. So the process we're looking to go through at the moment through this month's OCM is having the approval to establish the Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Group through an EII process. We'll then, through June, conduct the open up for expression of interest and applications. Then throughout July, we'll review those applications and then in August appoint and hopefully have our first Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Group meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Luke. Councillors, does anyone have any questions? Councillor Harris?
Will this be would the community representatives be a volunteer position, or will be paying them a fee?
Through the chair, yes. So all of our advisory group are volunteer positions.
Yes,
I have one question. How will this advisory group work in conjunction with the Pilbara Disability Network? It's already established.
So through the chair, this will be a separate body. So officers do attend and they're actively involved in the the Pilbara Disability Network. But this will be a separate body that will provide specific input for city projects and activities.
Thank you.
And are the total number on the group, is it 10 plus 2 councillors, or is it 10 up to 10?
Through the chair, it's 10 community members, being from that range of categories, the lived experience, carers, or in the disability service sector. Then the additional position will be for councillors as observers and the Director of Community Experience as the chair, and then an officer for the administrative support.
And is there, at what point in the process do we talk about the time of committee meetings? I know for my time here, sometimes we've had it at 1 PM or something, which doesn't suit too many people. So I guess in this busy environment we're in now, just making sure we take into consideration, we're asking people to volunteer, so we're going to be flexible with their time.
Through the chair, we'll take a similar approach as we did with the youth advisory group, where once we have identified the people who will participate, we will actually do a survey to determine the most appropriate date and time, but obviously still remain flexible and provide also the opportunity for people to attend online and things like that. So there'll be flexible attendance.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks for your presentations tonight, Luke.
Thank you. Oh yeah, and if actually through the week, if there's anyone that's interested in being on this advisory group, then let us know prior to the meeting. So I'm not sitting here next week going, someone put their hand up. So have a think about it. Okay. 12 is development services reports, with 12.1 being the business development support grant application for 26-27, with the officer's recommendation that council approve funding for the Karratha District's Chamber of Commerce and Industry to support the following one-off initiatives. That's for the Competing with Chains Business Resilience Program for the support for the 25-26 year, the recommended amount being $23,000. Does anyone have any questions about the recommendation? to approve funding. So 13 is the infrastructure services report. 13.1 is to request to invite tenders for the Windy Ridge culvert and cricket nets. With the officer's recommendation, the council agrees to invite tenders for the Windy Ridge culvert and cricket nets replacement in accordance with the scope of works outlined in this report. 2, delegate authority to the CEO to award RFT 79 to the preferred tenderer, subject to the value of the works up to $2.5 million. And 3, approved by absolute majority of budget allocation of 2.5 million for the 26-27 year to be funded from the infrastructure reserve and from Rio Tinto to the tune of 1.661 million from Rio Tinto. And the net funding impact of the city is $838,800. Does anyone have any questions about this tender invitation? Councillor Harris.
I thought the Rio were going to fund the whole lot of the culverts, and we're just providing the cricket nets. The cricket nets are valued at 200,000, but we're going to be out of pocket by 838. Am I missing something?
Through the chair, that is project contingency and overheads covered. So anything not used will get handed back. We're expecting around 200K for the nets.
Councillor Harris.
The culvert and cricket nets, they seem to be completely different types of projects. Is it usual that we will go out to tender? Because to me, the people that, we've got a culvert tender we may award this week, for a company, and I've seen 8 different companies there, but I've never seen any of those do any cricket nets before.
Through the chair, we will release the culvert works as a package. And as we did with the Kevin Richards nets, look to do in-house to our service contracts.
So they will be separated out.
Yeah.
Won't be relying on the guy that can put concrete underground.
It's a really good question, though. Yeah.
I think that's covered it, but yeah. So you think we're going to only be out of pocket 200,000, not 800,000? You just got that in the budget just in case.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No. Jody, looks like you got something.
Is that a large contingency compared to normal?
Through the chair, yes. We are not 100% sure what we're going to find buried. And we'll need to work with that with Rio when we expose what's
legacy
issues. We're just preparing for the worst.
Okay.
Does Rio Tinto know what's under there?
No.
No.
They absolutely don't.
Is there old working drawings of what's supposed to be there?
Yes.
There is.
Yes. What's supposed to be there. We're not sure what's been added outside of that.
Is that that area behind the oval has changed a lot over the last 50 years. Used to be very big, deep holes there. So they've obviously been filled in over the last 20, 30 years to what it is now. Because, you'd probably find a few footballs because once they went right over the back, you couldn't get them out. It went down a long way.
I'm going to blame the Dampier old boys that are coming up in September. And I reckon all of those blokes that were here through those years just did shit. No plans, just did it.
John Lally was the leader of it.
All right. I think I could digress. I could go off on a tangent. Right. Any other questions? No? 13.2.
Yeah.
A request to invite tenders for vegetation slashing services. With the officer's recommendation, the council agreed to invite tenders for the provision of vegetation slashing services for a period of 3 years, with 2 one-year extension options, exercisable at sole discretion of the city, and in accordance with the scope of works outlined in this report. Does anyone have any questions on our invitation for vegetation slashing services? Councillor Johansson?
If we're currently, first off, are we currently hiring new managers and coordinators in the Parks and Gardens Department?
Yes, we are.
So if we're currently hiring people in those roles, wouldn't it be best to wait until we've got people in those roles to be able to have a look at the scope of this tender? The ones that are going to be in charge of the project? That
Through the chair, we have the experience currently within the Parks and Gardens team to help determine this scope of work. We have the current coordinator still with us, who has helped write this scope, who's managed this package of work for a long time.
Councillor Johansson, another one?
the area stated, you know, in square meters for slashing, how's that area determined? And has it been reassessed since the tender was last called? And if not, why?
Through the chair, I can provide you with the maps we use, which determine locations and square meterage. Give a better picture than me trying to explain it.
Yep, another one, Councillor Jansen.
Yeah, as I've always sort of looked towards something, we get a lot of community feedback on slashing and weeds, you know, throughout the city, and it always blows back on the city. So why is this sort of not coming down the path of coming in-house? And, you know, what could be the potential cost savings of coming back in-house on a project like this, considering we have a lot of the equipment in the scope of this anyway?
Did you want to take that on notice, or you want to have a?
Yeah, I can take it on notice. It'll give you a better considered answer.
Yeah, let's we'll respond to that in a little bit more detail, Councillor.
Councillor Harris.
You've finished, Brenton?
Yeah, I'll get you go.
3 times a year. This year, obviously we've had a few rain events. Did I read correctly that we're up to our fourth slashing event for this year?
Yes.
So we're saying that's an unusual year. We only normally do 3, or do you think this is going to be a new norm? What?
We are reviewing the level of service. However, it does depend when we get rain events. In this year, we got 1 rain event, went through and did our 3rd service run, and then almost got a rain event straight away.
And propose there's going to be another rain event.
Yeah, exactly. 2 days.
Should we hold on? No. No worries. I just thought, yeah, I read 4, you know, when they come out, the community report last week.
So is the question, is 3 going to be sufficient to maintain the good service level? Is that sort of where you're headed with that, compared to what?
Well, I could say, is it an unusually
unusual? Is 4 unusual?
Unusual year, and he said, yeah, well, the rain appeared a couple of times and straight after, but you weren't to know.
Picking up on a comment you just made, that around service review. So are we currently reviewing service levels for vegetation slashing and weeding?
Yeah, this contract will be set up to allow us to do more reactive work, which spot deals with problem areas that get raised by a community. And in next year, we're also doing an overhaul of our weed management strategy.
And so if we're going to review the service to be a bit more agile, how best is it then the community, or where's the feedback come through?
Report it.
Yeah, so that's still the best method for people to report, or anything really.
Yeah, absolutely.
For slashing and weeding and overgrown vegetation.
Yeah, it goes through our customer sort of management module then.
Okay, any other questions?
I had one just regarding the methodology. Was again, we continue to raise the ability to deliver. So in this particular one, you've just got prices the 50%, where we have started seeing price going down to more of that 40% mark in some of these service ones. with the capacity to deliver to be up around the 20% mark. Is there, my question would be, have you considered that methodology to be the right scale for this?
Through the chair, yes. What we're looking for is capacity to deliver. So we want to make sure that when we award this service contract, that whoever we do award to can meet our ad hoc needs as well.
So you're saying that look to go up to 20 from 15, because it's currently still only at 15, is what my question is.
You're asking if there should be a high weighting on the capacity to deliver?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
That's
Uh,
do you want to take that one?
Yeah, take it on notice.
On notice?
We can alter
If we think that we've been.
I think.
Thank you all about it.
Jody asked all the good questions.
I think take it on notice. You've got a question there about that, the weighting of capacity to deliver and whether or not that is actually strong enough in the overall pack.
Yeah.
So take that on notice and have a chat to the team about that. Thank you. That's right.
Yep. Any other questions? Councillor Johansson, is there a hand up?
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting correct.
Giving the slashing of the thoughts of bringing it in-house, can we know what our current Parks and Garden team numbers are now compared to what they were 5 years ago and what they were 10 years ago?
Oh God, blimey.
10 years.
I don't know if I've got data that's easily retrievable because our people systems have not been that crash hot. We've only been improving them in the last sort of year or two. So I to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if I would be able to pull that information together for you.
I could give an estimate.
An estimate?
Yeah.
What is it that you're trying to determine, councillor? What's the
just on the
question
scope
that we're helping you to answer?
The scope of work that we're currently managing based off staffing numbers in Parks and Gardens team. It's been said by a few in the community that we used to have less Parks and Gardens team and the same amount of green spaces that we have now.
Through the chair, that's not correct at all.
No.
And we also maintain a considerable amount of areas under agreements for others.
Yeah.
As well, that we provide services, and this is a service that going 10 years ago was not afforded at all.
Would you like us to provide a couple of just a bit of advice back to you in the briefing notes on that, councillor?
Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah, just to talk a little bit about you're okay to do that?
Yeah.
Sort of staff numbers versus service levels.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Right. Moving on to 13.3, which is the tender outcome for the Wickham South Youth Rec Area construction. The officer's recommendation that we accept the tender submitted by Emerge Proprietary Limited, the most advantageous tender to form a contract based on the assessment of the compliance criteria, quality criteria, and pricing structures offered under RFT 70 for the Wickham South Youth Rec Area. 2, authorise the CEO to execute a contract with Emerge Proprietary Limited, subject to any variations of a minor nature. And 3, approved by absolute majority an allocation of 1.85 million in the 26-27 budget, with 750,000 funded by Rio Tinto to cover the costs of the project scope. Does anyone have any questions on this agenda item? No? What's the contingency in this one?
I'll take on notice. Not sure I can give you the number with the value being the contract award.
Any other questions, councillors? Nope. All right, 13.4 is the tender outcome for the Bayview Road culvert replacement. The officer's recommendation is that council accept the tender submitted by Core Earth Moving as the most out. Your presentation, Troy, your presentation. Let's run through the presentation first.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor, councillors, CEO. Obviously, just giving a presentation. Troy, your acting manager, city projects and engineering. For those that don't know, looking to provide an overview of the Bayview Culvert, which is going to council next week. So, looking to just go through a brief project overview, some of the considerations from the project team around impacts to the community and some of the traffic management considerations for the project. So the overview, obviously that's a picture of the culvert and the concrete condition. It's a failed asset that's at end of life and requires replacement to maintain the effective capacity of the drainage through Mill as well and Bix Creek. Drainage performance, obviously mentioned there. Full road closure is required, and obviously looking to go to endorsement of council next week. The road closure and traffic management for the project and some of the considerations, obviously in the report to council, the officer's recommendation talks to the successful or the recommended tenderer's time frame for the project of 35 days closure, and some requirements around them to try and reduce that as much as we can. The detour from their submission around traffic control utilises Dampier Highway and closes the road locally to Catchwell Park and Hyde Road. So it's a bit hard to read there. So obviously a lot closer on my screen, but the green lines is the anticipated route along Broadhurst, Dampier Highway and Balmoral Road, the city centre edge. The red is the work site, and the orange is the yellow, sorry, is the depiction of the access roads, Catchwell Park, and all the areas that will maintain access through local traffic only. Delivery approach, obviously it's a full road closure to increase efficiencies and reduce the time it takes to maintain or to replace the asset. And then I mentioned the contractors responsible to minimise the duration where practical. So community impacts and mitigation, some of the stuff the team has worked through in consideration. So identifying stakeholders is always really important for these types of projects. They're going to have a forward-facing impact on road usage. So local residents at the forefront, the school, local business, local mobile traders working out of the car park there at the school, next to the school, buses, so PTA, emergency services, utilising around them understanding that that road will not be usable and have to find and understand the improved routes, and more generally the public themselves and the casual road users, including tourist season visitors. Communications, obviously direct engagement with all the stakeholders. We've identified a staged approach to make sure we've got currency of the message being sent, and obviously using all the channels available for us to communicate our messages and our communications for impacts to the community. Mitigation measures. Clear signage, traffic wars obviously talks at a workshop this month about VNB and having the ability to control the messaging on those. Timing of the communication being calibrated to ensure that, like I mentioned, you've got currency of message and you don't lose that, so don't go too early and people forget about it, don't go too late and people aren't prepared for alternative arrangements. Maintenance of the critical infrastructure and assets and access to the school spaces and the detour. Expected outcomes is there'll be a short disruption, obviously up to 35 days, 6 weeks of impacts in the community. And I really believe that when people are approached and city communication is planned and delivered, I think that there's a schedule and a report of how that looks for more detail. People will find other options and they'll use other routes and modify their road usage. That's all. Any questions?
Thank you, Troy. Any questions, councillors? Maybe
I've got quite a few questions. Sorry.
No, next year. Yes, Councillor Harris.
Obviously, timing. I do have concerns for this. Real concerns. The timing. Obviously, if we award the contract soon for the client to materialise and get on site. How long are we looking?
So there's some long lead considerations. Through the chair, there's some long lead considerations. One for procurement material, There's a process for the successful tenderer to go through their traffic management plan endorsement. So that's a review process internally. So there's a consideration of a period of time there. There's obviously the negotiations, the minor contract variations that we work through as a procurement process. So the timing, so to answer your question more directly, the timing considerations have been around avoiding FINACL and starting in August as a schedule for our timing for the delivery of the works.
Fantastic idea to avoid FINACL, but does that give us any of the school holidays now then with those dates?
So it falls outside school holidays, I believe, without knowing the dates front of mind.
Holidays this year. The school holiday break is Saturday the 26th of September to Sunday the 11th of October, yeah?
We can confirm that in the briefing notes for you, Councillor.
I mean, without counting the traffic, I find it hard that we can make considering it's only going to be a short disruption and everything like that. I do a lot of driving and spend a lot of time on the roads, and there's a lot of traffic already on our roads. Where at the moment the town is at bursting point, and I don't think the roads can handle everyone going along there. I'll find a question in a minute. When I used to go to the high school in the morning, and to get out of Broadhurst and turn right, it was a nightmare, So when you start pushing everyone to the top road, people are coming from Nickel and everything like that normally go along Bayview will now have to head to the top road.
Yes.
And when you come across someone trying to turn right, all the roundabouts are one lane entry. So if you've got one person wants to turn right, and there's a continuous line of cars coming from the Nickel end because everyone's now getting on the road as early as they can. Because if you leave it to your point there, you're going to get caught in that no one can get out because there's so many cars coming along, and before you know it, they're all backed up down the end. People are trying to go through to try and find another way out there. But there's a lot of people that want to turn right in mornings and any time of the day, which will block all those entry points. So can we consider propping up the drain and doing it in January? Because, there's just going to put a massive strain on the residents. I mean,
so the question is it feasible?
Can we find another way to push out?
So your suggestion is a January timing would be better than
the officers already recognise that school holiday would be a good time because there's not the extra dropping off and picking up.
Yeah.
So the only time you can get a school holiday within 6 weeks is in January and February.
Yeah.
I just.
I'm hearing you concerned. Yeah.
So through the chair, we're still talking plan hypothetical dates because they haven't awarded a contract yet. We are not yet in negotiations around construction planning with Corp. So once we've awarded, we can then sit down and work with them on a timeline and a schedule. At this stage, the key thing we're looking to avoid is FINACL. We can then look to push further out till we get into the school holidays, but school holidays are only 2 weeks and we're looking at 6. We can still negotiate with them timeline and work with them once we've awarded on other methods to shorten that up. But until we award, we can't have those open discussions with the contractor. Yeah. And if we were looking to do the works in January, we're looking to do them in cyclone season, and we're looking to ask a contractor to work over Christmas, which are also issues we have to manage in an earthwork project.
Most earthwork companies will shut down for 2 weeks over the Christmas break, no more normally.
So is there how long has that COVID got? Is there a definitive answer, or
within the next 12 months.
within the next 12 months.
You do have a Christmas in the next 12 months.
Through the chair, I think the report will talk more broadly to potentially the next rain event. Obviously, engineering reports talk to not affording you the time, obviously, so it's a critical asset. I had a couple of preparations and answers to your question as it was being formalised, Councillor. It's I think I'll lead back to what we communicated at the workshop a couple of weeks ago. Is a planned approach to the replacement of this infrastructure and the impact being considered and planned and communicated is better than having a reactive failure and not having a planned approach. So the impact of the community would be considerable.
Can we alleviate the planned failure though? That's the thing. If we can alleviate the planned failure long enough to find a time when we're not going to impact our residents, you know, for a minimum of 5, 6, any project could overrun 7 weeks. I don't think we'd have a job if it takes, you know, if we do this.
Is this contract for day night as well, operation,
Not currently.
to reduce the time?
Something we can discuss when we can get into contact with our preferred bidder.
And I noticed with the emergency services advice, it's 2 weeks prior to work commencing. Would it be worth having that conversation with them in the initial piece with regards to the contractor and managing like that access? Like,
So through the chair, we will notify them well ahead of the 2 weeks. The 2 weeks is the formal comms the contractor has to provide. So that will be told ahead of time what we're planning, and we'll make arrangements.
because I'm similar to Councillor Harris with the past works that were done, the backlog of traffic, and especially down there, there's not a lot of space to be manoeuvring, which we have raised at the past briefing as well. So I don't think that was a question, but how are you maintaining emergency services access? There you go. That'll be one you can answer.
So yeah, through the chair, obviously, the early communications, the comms engagement plan already started for stakeholder identification. The plans into the teams are working on that plan, so it's a formalised plan. There's a group that sit there and identify the stakeholders, early engagement, so BTA, emergency, already notified there's a project out there in the consideration. So that work's happened and is continuing to happen. And then yeah, the detail as the director mentioned is a rollout of the timed planned approach to our implementation of the
So
plan.
councillors, could I suggest if we go back to the document that what you're being asked to approve, you're being asked to approve the awarding of the tender and the allocation of funding, and then you're not being asked to commit to the time frame. And I think that's what the director was actually suggesting, is that we're hearing your concerns. Once we've awarded the tender, then we can focus on the implementation, the execution planning, the communications, and we're hearing you loud and clear. You're clearly concerned. So I think that then comes down to discussing with the tenderer what would they, you know, what could they be suggesting to help us to manage some of these pressure points. So that would probably be my suggestion, is we keep you informed as key stakeholders and progress to the next step should you decide to award this tender next week.
Would that be an opportunity for an amendment to the recommendation to ensure that
there's communication
and feedback to council?
It's at your discretion. I'm happy to.
Something to think
We
about.
can put that in.
I'm happy to commit to it, but you can lock me in.
Okay, any other questions? No? All right, thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me around.
14 is strategic projects and business reports, of which there are none. 15 is the CEO reports. 15.1 is the items of information only. The office recommendation is the council update on the development assessment panel and SAT Warden's Court matters. An information report on the Point Sampson interim plan. Record of tender outcome on the delegation for construction quality assurance services at 7 Mile Waste Facility, Class 3, Cell 3 and 4 construction. An information report on community experience service and programs for March, and an information report on the concession on fees for city facilities report for March. Does anyone have any questions on the CEO's reports?
I had one minor one. It was just the and it's more just out of interest. The Point Sampson Advisory Group that was established, has that meeting been set yet?
I'll have to take that on notice. I'm not sure of the answer to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the information in the reports? No, last chance, ready? Nothing? Okay.
Motions.
Then we got 16, which is the motions which previous notice has been given, or which we have one. Councillor Johansson has put through a notice of motion for Andover Park out at Roeburn. And the council's recommendation is that council prioritise the planned lighting upgrades at Andover Park and consider the installation of signage with the appropriate contact numbers for residents to report street drinking and antisocial behaviour. Councillor Johansson, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I think it explains itself, but I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
Anyone have any questions for Councillor Johansson? And obviously, we already have a budget allocation at Andover Park. It's about prioritising the lighting improvements.
I have had a number of community members in Roeburn raise this with me as well.
Yeah.
So there is concern about this particular park. So I think the officers have said that they'd be supportive. So it's clearly a need there at the moment.
Can I get some clarification though on the number 2 to consider the installation of signage? So I presume that Councillor Johansson's worked with the staff on this as well. Is there a reason why it's consider the installation of signage?
Councillor, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, it was considered because what the community initially wanted is some of that signage that you can put up at, the houses where you're not allowed alcohol at, which we spoke about in council chambers a couple of weeks ago. It was one of just yourself and the mayor, the CEO. So what the residents want and what we're able to actually provide, I think are going to fall on 2 different sort of things. But at least if we can work with them and provide some signage to just make some other people understand that, you're not allowed to drink in the park, basically. And it gives other community members the numbers to call to report the issues that are going on in the park area there.
Thank you. Councillor Swapper, did you have a question?
My question was, does administration know the current timing of when this was looking to be completed? And is it worthwhile having a date in the recommendation?
So through the chair, we're planning for the lighting works to take place after the footpath and parking upgrades, which are about to start in the next couple of weeks. The signage element is new, and we just need to investigate Councillor Johansson's comments and make sure that we can do what is being asked, and that what we do is what the community wants. So we need to engage with them as well. Once they're done, we can commit to a time.
I'm suggesting we probably decouple the 2 pieces. The lighting work will continue, and as you say, you've already got that in the the cookie cutter machine. I think with the signage, we'll need to, as you said, get community input on that. But I'm actually imagining rather than a punitive "thou shalt not do," I think it's probably more of a community appeal, something softer that's actually saying, "Hey, you know, kids play here. Please, you know, please remember to treat this park with respect." So something that's kind of got a really nice community oriented tone to it that's that suits the language of what the community wants to say. But I think I'd probably be sort of doing something along those lines, a bit more of a community education type signage rather than a "thou shalt not," I think is probably what I'd be suggesting.
Yeah, I mentioned that, and I was pretty much advised by the few people, as long as it had a picture of a alcohol with a line through it, basically.
Yeah.
They want something that makes it clear to the people that don't read.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like a sign that says you can't play golf here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think our community engagement team can probably work with the locals to come up with a really nice way to get that message across.
Councillor Roots, did you have a question?
I did. Yeah, really welcome this one because it's something that many community members have been asking for a really long time, and knowing that the city is onto this at the moment, that the age-old issue of how long does it take to implement the project. If I could ask, are we able to get in touch with our tenderer who is out there working in this space right now, just to see, can we get an indication on if this can be implemented quicker, just to help us with an access?
Through the chair, we would use our electrical services contractor who's on a set agreement that we could award this through quickly.
Right, okay.
Yeah, those other contractors civil based.
That's right. But so the question that I'm hearing is, there's a sense of urgency. Can we find
a way?
Can we talk to the team, see if there's a way to bring it forward?
It's been an urgent issue for a really long time.
Okay. Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, like, is it something we can go back to the community and say it'll be there in the next 2 months is what we're looking for?
Okay. Let's take that one on notice. But so Councillor Johansson, thanks for raising it. It's clearly, I've heard it, you've heard it, Sarah's heard it. So clearly we need to get onto it. So yeah, we'll take the question of timing offline.
Okay. All right. There's no more questions to the rest of the motion. We've got 17 questions by members of which due notice have been given. There's none. 18 is urgent business approved by the person residing or by decision. There is none. 19 notice behind closed doors, or which we just have the outcomes. So that is the end of the meeting. So the briefing is finished at 8:18 p.m. Thank you everyone for your attendance. Thank you, Councillor Gillam and Councillor Johansson online. And we'll see you all here 6 p.m. next week.
We'll never